And a very good morning to you. This is NEWSLINE Live. We're broadcasting from the Newsfirst studios in Dawson Street in Colombo. And this morning, our guest this morning was due to be the Member of Parliament, Mr. Vidra Wickramanayake, but unfortunately, Mr. Wickramanayake isn't here. And so we're carrying on as we always do, no matter what. NEWSLINE Live will carry on. And this morning I'm joined by my colleague on the Newsfirst floor, Charlene Benedict. Very good morning to you, Charlene.
Very good morning to you, Faraz, and what a pleasure it is to be on this show with you. I believe it's the first time that we are conducting this show together.
Indeed. We, as you can see, we're well equipped here. And this is, stay safe, stay distanced. And that's the only way to sort this thing out. Now then,
Faraz, before we start, one difference is the fact that although we're on our usual set, you seem to be a bit far apart from me.
Indeed. This is where we need the wide shot, don't we? Look at that. That's, can you see that? We are, I want to show people that we are keeping our distance. And this is very important. And there you go. Do help yourself, and apart from the cup of tea. Now then, this morning, the global figures are 726,433 confirmed cases of COVID-19, and unfortunately the deceased figure is 34,025, out of which we've got in Sri Lanka we have 117 cases of confirmed cases. Unfortunately, again, 1 deceased and 11 that have recovered. So the figures are there. It is compelling, these figures. These are just not numbers, but we use the numbers to convey to everybody, if they're not already sure, the seriousness of the problem. This morning, driving into work, I noticed one thing, and there again is a powerful message. That is that there was a lot of army personnel on the road. Now, there's a difference between policing and when the military come on board. That is because the military will, they're not the police. So there's no messing about. They mean business. If you're meant to be at home, stay at home. Work at home. That was the message that the government told us to do today, and as far as possible to work at home. Of course,
but Faraz, besides the fact that like you said, the army presence, the military presence in the country is a compelling reason to follow the law, as they can be more persuasive in your view, and I believe that's the general understanding, than certain other law enforcement authorities due to the strict discipline that they do practice. But however, the underlying reason for a person to stay at home is not merely because government has imposed strict regulations on them. I believe it was in Sweden, or a developed country in the West, that the Prime Minister came out and said, we're adults, we understand the gravity of the situation, the gravity of what might come if there is a massive outbreak of this virus in our country, and so we request our citizens to stay at home, and the citizens complied. And even before the military was deployed in such a massive manner across the country to enforce strict curfew regulations, I believe Sri Lankans were mature enough to stay back at home, and that's part of the reason why, while Italy and countries like that have been going on a extremely upward trend with the number of coronavirus infections that are being detected in the country, Sri Lanka, we are faring relatively better. But however, having said that, that doesn't mean that we can take a back seat and relax at a time when the health authorities in the country, along with all the other supporting bodies and institutions in the country, are working so hard to curb the spread of this virus. Now, while for a person who is seated at home, staying at home for 2 weeks is not quite an easy job.
No.
And well, we here at Newsfirst too, we have taken certain measures to curb the spread of the virus by limiting our staff. at News First. And so we are working on a weekly basis. And the first week I had the opportunity of staying at home. And I personally understand how hard it is, although we complain about work and all that. When we stay back at home, there's not much to do. Also, you are restricted because there are no gatherings that you can go out to, shops are closed,
but that
things
is
like
the price that everybody, the globe is paying. That is the price the globe is paying. It's just not only Charlene Benedict and all those in Sri Lanka, but that is the price that the entire world is paying. There will be some classic cases, like in England yesterday. The police, I think it was somewhere in Yorkshire, they found that there was what the police themselves called a mega karaoke party consisting of adults and children, and there were over 25 people there, and the police were called in, and they had to put a stop to it and send all the guests away, and they held the organizers accountable, which means that they're probably taken off to the police station and get a good telling off, and perhaps prosecution too. In Sri Lanka, of course, if you're caught breaking the curfew rules and regulations, you will be arrested, and the police will oppose bail, which means including the vehicle you're traveling in will be seized and will only be released after you make an appearance before a magistrate. So please don't put more pressure than necessary on an already overloaded judicial system, and please don't gamble with the safety of our fellow citizens. These rules are in place for everybody in the country. It is not for any one particular community or anything of the sort. If there's one thing that COVID-19 has done here in Sri Lanka, it is that it has, the entire country is united, and they understand that this is affecting the whole country. Of course, it's affecting the whole world. Now, Charlene, whilst this is all going on, and whilst the government is actually tackling the problem as best it can, we must also remember that we are shall we say, an economically challenged nation, with growth rates reported at one stage of something like 1.2%, down from around 7% before, many years, 5 years ago. We are having a problem. And in that context, the latest proposals coming out of the Prime Minister of Finance in the Prime Minister's office is a proposal to refund, basically settle 500 million rupees from the EPF fund. The fund itself is worth approximately 3 trillion rupees now, coming up to 3 trillion.
Speaking about the EPF, it reminds me that this is not really the first time that an administration of this country has meddled with the EPF to the detriment, of course, of the beneficiaries.
That's you're absolutely spot on. You're on point there, Charlene. But in this case, the proposal, having read that, what they say is that this is so that the EPF holder, the member, can be paid in total of up to 500 million, so that it will ease the burden on people who have loans and so on, so that they can settle those and take the pressure off. This is not that they are taking the 500 million to invest in the stock market, which is anyway closed, and so on. But your concern is valid. I understand where you're coming from.
Could there be foul play in this?
Well, unfortunately,
we'll have to wait and watch.
Our rules are there and everything is there. But this impunity, the level of impunity, is the one that sort of
stands in the way.
Stands in the way in more ways than one. There are people who think that they can party and get away with it, and the police and the army. And the Air Force and the Navy and so on, they are not going to stand by and watch this thing happening, because when you break the rules, you are placing not only yourself at risk, but everybody else too. So you must obey the rules, basically. Am I sounding a bit like your father or your mother?
Yes, Faraz. The resemblance is the resemblance in the manner of speech is quite uncanny, though.
All right. But look, the problem is this. There are around the world 726,433 people have been affected by this virus.
Faraz, you, just drawing it back a little bit on what you said that we're in an economically challenged state. I believe that's the situation across the globe. This is one of the worst that the global economy has been since the Great Depression a couple of decades ago. However, Sri Lanka has, as quite rightly as you pointed out, the administration of the government of Sri Lanka has announced economic stimulus packages. We've also received aid from the United States as well as China to curb the spread of this virus. And if you have been following the news closely, you would remember that when the leaders of all the SAARC nations held a video conference a couple of weeks back, they agreed, or there was a proposal by the Indian Prime Minister to set up a fund among the SAARC nations to combat COVID-19.
Yeah.
And there was a pledge made by the Indian Prime Minister of $10 million US. And I believe there was a pledge also made by President Gotabaya Rajapaksa following the video conference to donate to this fund. Now, all of these efforts are to curb the spread of COVID-19, and all of these efforts would be in vain, once again, just to stress the importance of the participation of the general public of this country in all of these efforts. You need to stay at home, you need to stay responsible, and you need to follow the regulations set forth by the government. Of course, these regulations on limiting the movement of people come at a price. There will be an inconvenience, but then again, the government has also, a person could ask, if you're asking us to stay at home, how do you expect us to eat? How do you expect us to get our medicine? And these were issues that were aired on our channel, and there was a response from the government. Faraz, if you have been, I know you've been following the news very closely these days, and you would remember that there was this issue with the distribution of medicine.
Indeed.
A person who is suffering with non-communicable diseases such as diabetes, high blood pressure, and diseases that need constant medication as such, found it a bit difficult to get their medication with the fact that curfew has been imposed on one hand and that pharmacies were closed down on the other.
The whole problem is that our nation has a history of being rather lackadaisical when it comes to following the rules. They always think that, oh, we can shape it up. There's nothing called shape it up here. We're talking serious business here. And therefore, when people were under the guise of going to the pharmacy, they were going, and some were opening their little shops and so on. And I know these things are necessary. The police have been taking a rather wide-angled view of this. But honestly, the government has felt that some people are taking a mickey, and it's got to stop. And with the army out there, you're going to find it, if you think you're going around there just to lounge about and to kill your boredom, remember this, that you're potentially killing, apart from yourself, you could kill a lot of other people too. We can't stress enough how necessary it is to keep your distance, stay safe. It's absolutely essential. And coming back to this issue of the delivery of medicines.
And also essential food items.
And essential food items. Now, for example, just now, on my way into work, I spotted a little vehicle. It was full of bread, and they were doing bread deliveries. So we were able to do that. Like that, there are lots of lorries doing their rounds in the neighborhood. Some people, I will read out a message which I've just received about that. Some people complain that they're not given enough time and so on. Well, these are difficult times. that doesn't give them an excuse. But honestly, you need to be a bit more aware of what is happening around there. Listen out, do visit your porch, your balcony, and listen out for these things that happen. And they are happening.
Also, for us, about these claims that this procedure is not efficient enough, and that people are not given enough time to purchase, and that people are acting very disorganized. I think it's quite unfair on part of the general public to just point the finger at someone else when it comes to these matters. It's up to the people who utilize these services. For example, if it is a truck, a small lorry that delivers bread, when it does come to your neighborhood and people go to purchase bread from this, it is up to the general public to stand orderly 1 meter away from each other, follow government safety procedures, and act as mature adults, civilized people when purchasing these items, instead of just going around these trucks and flocking around and then complaining that the procedure is not set in place. Also, for us, on the subject of distribution of medicine, now while essential food items can be distributed in a manner where you can just send out a truck or deliver it to your homes like that, the same procedure cannot be followed when it comes to drugs, especially prescription drugs, medical drugs. Yesterday we had the chairman of the State Pharmaceutical Corporation on one of our segments here on Primetime News, and according to the chairman of the State Pharmaceutical Corporation, the government has introduced a mechanism that involves the Postal Department and the State Pharmaceutical Corporation, as well as the health sector in our country, the hospital network, so on and so forth, to deliver the medicine to people's houses. Now, starting with, firstly, of course, there was a detailed report on this filed yesterday on our news bulletin, and if you want to understand the exact mechanism of how you can do this, or how you can get your medicine delivered to your home, you can of course log on to our award-winning website, www.newsfirst.lk, or more conveniently, keeping up with the current times, you can follow us on our Facebook and get the relevant details that you need on how you can order medicine to bring it to your doorstep. But just an overview of this entire procedure, Faraz. Of course, for people who have a phone that is compatible with the app WhatsApp, you can send a WhatsApp message to certain designated numbers that can also be accessed on our Facebook page and on our website. Now, these messages that you send off WhatsApp should be a picture of your prescription, especially for prescribed drugs. And once you do that, the hospital authorities will work together with the Postal Department, State Pharmaceutical Corporation, and make sure that the drugs are delivered to you. So on your part, the only thing that you need to do is send a WhatsApp message to the designated number of your prescription drugs.
And pay 75 rupees.
75 rupees for us is for the delivery charge. Generally, now yesterday we also had the Postmaster General coming right here on News First to make an explanation on how the procedure works. And according to the Postmaster General, generally, I mean, practice people would know this as well, the Postal Department, when it comes to delivery of packages, they charge you for the weight of the package. And the minimum charge for, I'm not exactly sure of the weight, but it was around 65 rupees. But of course, the Postal Department, given the current prevailing situation in the country, has made amends to that and come to a compromise and said, you know, despite the weight of your medicine, you will be charged only 75 rupees for delivery. The weight will not be taken into account. The distance will not be taken into account. So anyone who needs to order their medicine can send a WhatsApp message, like I told you, to this number. Of course, then for us, there was another question that was raised. What about the people?
What is the number? Do you know the number?
The numbers can be accessed for us accurately on
www.newsfirst.lk,
as well as on
Newsfirst is News F-I-R-S-T, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so it's News F-I-R-S-T first.lk all together now. Newsfirst.lk.
So that you can have access to a plethora of news at your fingertips.
And one other thing, could we today, because of various challenges that we're facing ourselves in our operations, we've got a new, today, a special producer. Sumudu is producing. She's very kindly agreed to do that. And no sooner I say this, I'm sure Sumudu will put the number on the screen. You can send questions to Newsline Live by SMS on 0772 300 305. 0772 300 305 by SMS, please. Now then, I am going to read out a message which I've already got here from a regular viewer it says here, I am a regular viewer of Newsline, thank you, Face the Nation, thank you, and English news bulletins, all put together by that dynamic team called News First. Now then, here we go. It says here, Faraz, I am sending you this message instead of a voice message. We are really depressed at the current situation. Distribution of the essentials. The system the government has introduced currently is not working. My suggestion is all food products, namely from, and I don't want to say the names of the manufacturers and so on, but there are people who do the fish, the Fisheries Corporation, the chicken, the manufacturers, the distributors of that, all that. All distributors should directly approach residents in all areas in their distribution lorries with their products. They can make announcements with a speaker that they have arrived in the area. As residents in Devala, we are not receiving enough food items what we really need, and so on. So the vegetables also should be pre-packed and so on, and these measures are being carried out. True, not into all areas, Charlene. Do you have the same problem in your area?
Well, Faraz, when curfew was imposed due to the coronavirus outbreak is one of the real times that I understood that I was really a part of the privileged few in this society, because I had 3 meals a day. I had a few vegetables in the refrigerator, which is more than I can say for a bulk of the population in Sri Lanka who are closer or below the poverty line. And for us, this coronavirus outbreak is one of the worst outbreaks or a pandemic that we've seen in the world in modern times. Now, previously, I believe there was the SARS outbreak and the Ebola outbreak. Now, Sri Lanka wasn't affected much when it came to the Ebola outbreak or the SARS outbreak, not as much as this. So this is pretty much novel waters even for any one of us, and to expect someone to have a full-fledged plan without any loopholes, or a full-fledged procedure without any loopholes, is not practical. And I believe practicality is what we should be aiming at right now. Just this morning, since India has been placed on a lockdown for 21 days, for us, these are the measures that are being taken by governments across the world to curb the spread of COVID-19. India, the biggest democracy in the world, put under lockdown 1.3 billion people within just 4 hours of prior notice. Now, mind you that there are millions of expatriates that are working in India. There are millions of people who are below the poverty line in certain states of India who are left penniless and without any option, as the curfew that was imposed in India, and mind you, for 21 days, Faraz, was imposed just 4 hours in advance. Now, since we consider India as our big brother or very close relation, just take a look at the situation here in Sri Lanka. People were given the opportunity to go purchase their essential food items before curfew was imposed, and also in between of this period that we've been using curfew. And also the government took measures to relax the curfew, but unfortunately because of the actions of a few irresponsible people, curfew had to be imposed strictly. Now, for us, the Gampaha district has been identified as a high-risk zone. Now, one of the main reasons for the Gampaha district to be identified as a high-risk zone is, again, the irresponsible behavior, not of the majority of the population or the bulk of the population, but a very, very few people. I mean, a number of people that I could probably count on my hands. Now, these people, because of their irresponsible behavior, and we've continued to report on these matters, best example again for us is the patient from South Korea who was responsible for spreading the virus to 60% of the confirmed coronavirus patients in South Korea. Now, mind you, this lady attended 2 masses within the course of 2 days, which were attended by thousands and thousands of South Koreans, and 60% of the affected cases could be traced back to the virus strand of this woman. Now, there are similar cases here in Sri Lanka, although not at such a large scale, because such large gatherings were banned in Sri Lanka. There was an individual who was the first case that was identified in the central province very recently, yesterday or the day before, and this specific person has evaded authorities when he arrived from India, and shielded the fact that he has been having these symptoms and continued to move about with the general public. And that is one of the reasons why certain villages in the country, or certain areas in the country, had to be placed on strict lockdown. And we, as a responsible news organization, advise the general public not to act in such an irresponsible way. And the manner in which you act and how responsibly you act will determine the time frame on which in which you can return back to your normal life. And these sentiments were reiterated by DIG Ajit Rohana, Senior DIG Ajit Rohana, when he spoke with us on Newsline very recently as well.
Thank you very much, Charlene. And Newsline is, if we're going into 5 minutes of extra time here, I'm going to take some of these questions. It says here, I'm a diabetic person. I take insulin dosage every day. Now pharmacies are closed. How can I get it ASAP? Well, as Charlene said, you can also access the website health.gov.lk.
Yes.
And you can arrange for that through there. If all else fails, you can call your local police station, and they will help you. The same for a call from Mount Lavinia, who's asking how he can get cash out of the machine, presumably to pay the lorries and the little people who are coming around with the food items. Well, again, you're going to have to either call the police or wait outside and wait for the police to go past, the army or one of the tri-forces, and talk politely to them. They will help, be of assistance. They will be able to help you, but it is strictly on a case-by-case basis. And don't be trying to lead them on by telling lies, because if they catch you out, you'll be in deep trouble.
And Faraz, also on the subject of withdrawing money from banks, the banking service has been declared as an essential service. So banks will remain open from the date that the curfew is relaxed once again to a certain extent, which will be quite soon.
Indeed. And so some people are asking when they'll be able to get this money refund on account from the EPF. Well, it is at the current stage, it is a proposal only. A proposal by Mr. Cabral from at the Ministry of Finance, and the government will discuss it and then take a decision. I must stress that the decision has not been taken yet. It is a proposal, and they'll be looking at the proposals to that end. The questions are several, and they all are to do with how do we get the essential items. The essential items, the government is taking steps to bring it around to sort of roads near to where you live, and there'll be announcements so on. You must listen out for them. Online deliveries are available only in the city of Colombo. People beyond Malabar, no such luxury, Malabar, no such luxury, no phone reloads. Where is the right to information? Well, you know, we're living in hard times, and you're going to have to put up with some inconveniences. That is the stark reality. Remember that in India, we've been treated to the almost brutality of the police forces in India. But, you know, how do you control so many people? And if they keep breaking the law, and in Sri Lanka too, the people think that they can suddenly congregate to say prayers and so on. No, you can't do that. You can't do that because it is not allowed by law. Respect the law. And it's perhaps, there is a school of thought to say that perhaps the Sri Lanka police also should use a kind of a corporal punishment to ensure that the message gets home, so that these errant people, it's only a tiny fraction of our population, but nevertheless that tiny fraction can cause absolute havoc. Bear in mind that in total Sri Lanka has only approximately 580 ICU beds, and out of that less than 20 right now for infectious diseases use, which is including the COVID. Although there are plans to bring online the KDU facility, which is a state-of-the-art facility. We are told that they have 60 ICU beds and scope to expand it much more.
Also for us, underlying the complaints that come regarding the inconveniences that people have to suffer these days are generally coupled with the misconception of how lenient this virus is, or people thinking that this virus is not serious.
And 726,433 people dead. The last time I did this program on the 27th at 6:43 in the morning, that figure was 534,072. This morning at 6:54, which is an 11-minute difference, but 3 days later, 726,433. That is not, if that's not serious, I really don't know what is.
And also for us, the fate of a person who is unfortunate to contract the virus and also be claimed by this virus or die by this virus. We saw it firsthand when the first patient who passed away after being diagnosed with COVID-19 was cremated yesterday. Faraz, mind you, we aired this footage and we filed this report yesterday as well. The person who was cremated after passing away due to COVID-19 was only one of his relatives were allowed to pay their final respects to him.
That's
at
right.
The Infectious Institute of Infectious Diseases, and further two of his relatives were allowed to be present at the cremation of this individual. Now, mind you, this is not as serious as the situation in Italy, where very few people or almost no one is allowed to pay their final respects to.
That's right. So these are unusual measures that the world is not used to, taking place because what is facing us is also unusual. Never before in the history of the world has there been such a huge impact. Everybody, whether you are a superpower or whether you are a developing nation or whether you're a third world nation or an emerging economy like Sri Lanka is, everybody, whether you are a billionaire, millionaire, trillionaire, God knows what else, or whether you're at the bottom of the rung or the top of the rung, this is going to affect everybody. It is affecting everybody. There will be undoubtedly inconveniences along the way, but it is something that we're going to have to put up and shut up. And that is the way it is. It has affected prime ministers, heir to the throne in Britain, and so on.
Yesterday,
even
the
health ministry.
The first member of a royal family yesterday passed away in Spain, I believe.
That's right. And so these are just, we highlight them. We're no more special than you or me, but we're highlighting that just to show you that COVID-19 is a great equalizer, and we really must be careful, maintain the
social distancing,
maintain the social distance, wash your hands, clean your hands as you go, all the time. I see, Charlene, that you are waiting to use the hand sanitizer. So thank you very much for being on the program, Charlene. And thank you for watching Newsline Live. We don't know what happened to Vidru Vikramanayake. I'm sure that there's some rational explanation. He's a terribly nice gentleman who would have come here and lit up the show all on his own. But take care and have an excellent week ahead of you. Stay safe, stay distanced, follow the rules, stay alive. Take care. God bless.
Newsfirst, Newsline with Faraz Shauketaly.